Beyond the veil of the ordinary lies a world both fascinating and frightening, a world built on symbols, secrets, and shadows. It is a world humanity has whispered about for centuries, yet few truly dare to explore. This is the realm of the occult, the hidden, the forbidden, the unseen. But what we often recognize, the tarot cards, the pentagrams, the cryptic rituals, are merely the tip of the iceberg. Beneath that fragile surface lies something far deeper, far more complex, and far more unsettling. Like an iceberg adrift in a dark sea, the occult conceals its vast mass beneath the surface layers of forgotten knowledge, secret societies, and psychological mysteries buried in time. To gaze upon it is to confront not only ancient traditions and hidden truths, but also the darker corners of the human mind itself. Today, we descend together into the deep and unsettling occult iceberg, not to glorify the darkness, but to understand it, to illuminate it, and perhaps to see what it reflects about us all. The concept of surface versus depth within the deep and unsettling occult iceberg reveals a powerful truth about human curiosity and perception. When we speak of the occult, most people imagine the visible and sensational aspects: dark symbols etched in candlelight, whispers of forbidden rituals, tarot cards turned under the flicker of flame, or ancient texts written in indecipherable language. These are the visible fragments, the shimmering tip of the iceberg, what the world sees, fears, and often misunderstands. Yet beneath that surface, hidden within the silent mass below, lies something far more profound, intricate, and unsettling. The true depth of the occult is not defined by spectacle, but by the philosophy, psychology, and spiritual hunger that have drawn humanity toward the unknown for millennia. The surface of the occult world thrives in visibility. It manifests in popular culture, in the fascination with horror movies, dark aesthetics, and the romanticization of mystery. It is the outward expression of what societies deem strange, dangerous, or alluring. This surface allows people to engage with the unknown safely through symbols, stories, and imagery. It is the layer of intrigue, where mystery meets entertainment, where the pentagram becomes a prop and the ritual a performance. But this layer, though captivating, is shallow. It conceals an ocean of meaning beneath it, an ocean that many fear to explore because what lies below does not simply involve mystical practices. It involves the human condition itself. Beneath the surface, the occult transforms from spectacle into substance. It becomes a mirror reflecting the human pursuit of hidden knowledge and spiritual truth. Ancient civilizations used occult symbols not merely to invoke power, but to represent ideas of balance, transformation, and connection with forces greater than the self. Alchemy, for instance, was never merely about turning lead into gold. It symbolized the transformation of the soul, the refinement of human imperfection into enlightenment. In this depth, the occult is less about magic and more about meaning, about the eternal search for wisdom in a universe that rarely offers clarity. To explore the depth of the occult iceberg is to understand that much of what is hidden is not evil, but misunderstood. The word occult itself simply means hidden or concealed. Over time, society has layered fear and taboo upon it, pushing its deeper truths into secrecy. Yet those depths contain ancient philosophies, metaphysical studies, and the roots of science, psychology, and religion. The astrologers of old mapped the skies to understand divine order. Mystics meditated on sacred geometry to uncover the patterns of creation. Secret societies guarded esoteric teachings not to hoard power, but to protect knowledge from misuse or persecution. The true danger of the occult lies not in the darkness of its content, but in the ignorance and fear that surround it. Still, the deeper we descend, the more unsettling the waters become. The occult iceberg reflects the duality of human nature, our thirst for truth and our temptation toward control. Within the depths are practices and beliefs that test moral boundaries, rituals that confront death, ego, and the unknown forces of the mind. It is in these depths that fascination can turn to obsession, where the search for hidden knowledge can consume those unprepared for what they find. This is why the surface exists, to warn, to filter, to keep the unready from drowning in the darkness below. Just as one must respect the sea before diving, one must approach the occult with humility, awareness, and discernment. The contrast between surface and depth also mirrors how we perceive the world around us. Society often judges by appearance, preferring simplicity over complexity. The occult challenges that impulse. It asks us to look beyond the obvious, to question, to interpret, to see hidden patterns in chaos. It reminds us that truth is rarely on the surface. It lives in the unseen spaces between fact and faith, reason and wonder. Those who dare to explore beneath the surface do not merely uncover secrets about the occult. They uncover truths about themselves. The descent becomes an inward journey, revealing fears, desires, and the shadow aspects of one's own mind. Ultimately, the deep and unsettling nature of the occult iceberg lies not in the darkness it holds, but in the reflection it casts. The surface shows us the mask, the images of witches, symbols, and superstition. The depth shows us the mirror, the part of ourselves drawn to mystery, the hunger for meaning beyond what we can see. It exposes the fragile boundary between curiosity and fear, between knowledge and danger. To explore these depths responsibly is not to embrace the darkness, but to illuminate it, to understand that light and shadow coexist, that ignorance breeds fear, and that wisdom begins when we dare to look below. The surface and the depth of the occult are not enemies. They are parts of the same whole. One invites, the other transforms. The surface captures our attention, but the depth demands our courage. Together they form an iceberg floating through the collective psyche of humanity, beautiful, haunting, and profoundly revealing. To study the occult is to realize that every mystery, no matter how unsettling, carries within it a lesson about the hidden forces that shape our minds, our history, and our endless search for truth beneath the surface of existence. The hidden layers of mystery within the deep and unsettling occult iceberg represent the vast, unseen expanse of human curiosity and spiritual exploration. While the surface of the occult reveals the familiar imagery of candles, sigils, and sacred rituals, it is within these hidden layers that the true enigma resides. This realm is not just about secret symbols or ancient incantations, it is about the timeless quest to understand the unseen, to pierce the boundaries between the known and the unknowable. The deeper one ventures, the more one realizes that the occult is not simply a collection of dark practices, but a complex web of hidden meanings, esoteric traditions, and psychological truths that have shaped humanity's relationship with mystery for centuries. Beneath the visible surface lies a labyrinth of intertwined beliefs and philosophies, each one seeking to answer the same eternal questions. Who are we? What lies beyond the limits of perception? What hidden forces govern existence? These layers are ancient, evolving over time through different cultures, religions, and secret orders. From the mystical teachings of Kabbalah to the alchemical texts of the Renaissance, from the rituals of secret societies to the coded symbolism in art and literature, each layer of the occult carries fragments of human understanding, pieces of a puzzle too vast to be solved by reason alone. These are not simply relics of superstition. They are expressions of a deeper yearning for connection with something beyond the material world. The hidden layers of mystery also reveal the human desire for power, not necessarily dominance over others, but mastery over the self and the forces of nature. Many who sought occult wisdom were not driven by malice but by the hunger for enlightenment, for control over one's destiny, and for unity with higher consciousness. The magicians, mystics, and philosophers of old viewed their practices as sacred science, an exploration of the invisible patterns that bind the cosmos. They believed that by understanding the mysteries of the unseen, they could uncover divine truths hidden within the fabric of reality. Yet this pursuit has always carried a shadow. For the deeper one delves, the more one risks awakening forces both internal and external that defy comprehension. These layers are not just hidden because they are secret, but because they are deeply symbolic. The occult communicates through allegory, through language that conceals as much as it reveals. Ancient grimoires, mystical diagrams, and coded texts were often written in riddles or metaphors, accessible only to those deemed worthy or prepared to grasp their meaning. This was not merely to keep knowledge from the uninitiated, but to protect it from distortion. The occult speaks to the intuitive mind, not the literal one. To understand it, one must think in symbols, dream in patterns, and interpret the unseen connections between all things. The mysteries are not given, they must be earned through contemplation, discipline, and an openness to paradox. What makes these layers truly unsettling is their connection to the unknown aspects of human consciousness. The occult does not only explore external mysteries, it delves into the inner world, the subconscious, the dreams, the fears, and the desires buried deep within. Carl Jung once described alchemy and occult practices as reflections of the psyche, mirrors through which humanity externalized its inner transformation. The hidden layers of mystery, then, are not confined to books or rituals. They live within the human mind itself. Every symbol, every ritual, every secret society is a metaphor for the soul's journey through darkness toward illumination. The occult is as much about psychological awakening as it is about metaphysical discovery. Throughout history, these hidden layers have emerged during times of crisis or transformation, when humanity sought answers that logic could not provide. During the Renaissance, scholars turned to Hermeticism and alchemy to reconcile science and spirituality. In the 19th and 20th centuries, occult revival movements resurfaced as responses to industrialization and the disconnection from the sacred. Even today, the fascination with astrology, witchcraft, and mysticism reveals an ongoing human need to find meaning in a chaotic world. The layers persist because they adapt, they evolve with each generation, reshaping themselves around new fears and new hopes. Yet, these mysteries remain hidden not only because they are complex, but because they demand humility. To approach the occult is to accept that not everything can be known, that some truths lie beyond human comprehension. The hidden layers remind us that mystery itself is sacred, that uncertainty is not an enemy of truth, but a part of it. The deeper one descends into the occult iceberg, the more one realizes that each revelation only leads to further questions. The seeker becomes both enlightened and haunted, illuminated by fragments of truth yet aware of how much still lies beneath the surface. In the end, the hidden layers of mystery are not merely about secret knowledge. They are about the eternal dance between light and shadow, ignorance and understanding. They symbolize humanity's refusal to accept the limits of perception, our willingness to question reality itself. The occult iceberg, in its deepest layers, represents the unseen architecture of the human spirit. Its fears, its hopes, its unending search for meaning in the darkness. And though these mysteries may never be fully unveiled, their very existence reminds us that the unknown is not to be feared, but respected. For it is within the hidden and the mysterious that the essence of wonder, wisdom, and truth truly resides. The allure of the forbidden has always been one of humanity's most compelling and dangerous temptations. Within the deep and unsettling occult iceberg, this allure serves as both a guiding light and a warning, a force that draws us toward the shadows even as it cautions us of what might await within. The forbidden has a magnetic quality precisely because it is prohibited. What we are told not to touch, not to know, or not to seek becomes the very thing we cannot resist. This paradox sits at the heart of the occult. For centuries, societies have labeled certain forms of knowledge as taboo, sealing them behind the walls of secrecy and superstition. Yet that act of suppression only deepened the curiosity. When something is hidden, it becomes irresistible. When knowledge is forbidden, it transforms into power. From the earliest myths to modern times, the story of human curiosity has always revolved around crossing boundaries. In the Garden of Eden, Eve's decision to taste the forbidden fruit symbolized the awakening of knowledge and self-awareness, an act that was both defiant and transformative. Prometheus stole fire from the gods to gift humanity enlightenment, and in doing so suffered eternal punishment. These archetypes echo through the ages, reminding us that the pursuit of forbidden knowledge is as old as humanity itself. The occult, in this sense, represents our ongoing rebellion against limitation, the refusal to accept ignorance as safety. It is a testament to the human spirit's relentless need to explore what lies beyond the visible, even if doing so invites darkness. The forbidden fascinates because it speaks to a deep psychological truth. It embodies the tension between fear and desire, between moral boundaries and intellectual freedom. To approach the occult is to dance on that line, aware that one step too far could lead to danger, yet unable to turn away. The human mind is naturally drawn to what it cannot easily comprehend. Mystery, danger, and taboo spark imagination, and imagination fuels belief. In the forbidden, we find not only fear but possibility, the promise that there might exist something greater, hidden just beyond reach. The occult becomes the ultimate stage for that drama, a world where forbidden knowledge offers the illusion of control over fate, nature, or even death itself. This allure is not merely about curiosity. It is also about power. Throughout history, access to secret knowledge has symbolized dominance and status. The mysteries of the ancient priesthoods, The rituals of secret societies and the grimoires of magicians all carried the promise of transcending the ordinary. To hold forbidden knowledge was to stand apart from the masses, to see what others could not. Yet with that privilege came peril. Those who sought too deeply into the occult often paid a price not always from external punishment, but from the internal turmoil that arises when confronting the unknown. The human mind craves control, yet the forbidden reveals how fragile that control truly is. The further one ventures into darkness, the more the boundaries between truth and illusion begin to dissolve. The forbidden also has aesthetic and emotional allure. Darkness, mystery, and transgression carry a strange beauty. The occult world filled with symbols, ancient languages, and rituals appeals to our sense of wonder. It seduces the imagination, offering a narrative richer and more dramatic than mundane reality. The Gothic cathedrals, shadowed libraries, and flickering candles of occult imagery are not only frightening but intoxicating. They represent a return to the sacred and the mysterious in a world that often feels mechanical and stripped of meaning. For some, the occult's forbidden nature makes it a refuge for the creative and the spiritual, a realm where questions are allowed and doubt is holy. Yet, the allure of the forbidden carries danger because it thrives on obsession. What begins as fascination can turn into fixation. Many who have sought secret wisdom found themselves consumed by it, losing touch with the world above the surface. The deeper one descends, the harder it becomes to return. The forbidden is alluring precisely because it promises more than it can deliver. It tempts with visions of ultimate truth, but often leads into labyrinths of confusion. This is the unsettling truth of the occult iceberg. That what draws us in may also destroy us if we enter without preparation, humility, or purpose. At its core, the allure of the forbidden reveals as much about human nature as it does about the mysteries we chase. It shows that within every soul exists a dual impulse, the yearning to explore and the fear of what might be found. The occult is a reflection of that inner struggle, a manifestation of our refusal to accept easy answers. We crave the forbidden not because we wish for evil, but because we hunger for meaning. The unknown represents freedom from limitation, an escape from the rigid structures of reality. To seek the forbidden, then, is to seek transcendence even at the risk of peril. Ultimately, the allure of the forbidden is both a warning and a revelation. It reminds us that curiosity is sacred but also dangerous, that enlightenment often walks hand in hand with darkness. The occult iceberg draws us with its shimmering promise. Yet beneath the surface, it challenges us to confront our deepest fears and desires. The forbidden is not simply a boundary imposed by society. It is a mirror of our own nature, reflecting the eternal human tension between knowledge and restraint. And so we remain drawn to the shadows, not because we wish to be lost in them, but because we hope that somewhere within their depths, we might finally find the light that has been hidden from us all along. The occult has never existed in isolation. It has always intertwined with the fabric of culture, quietly influencing art, literature, philosophy, and even science. The phrase cultural reflections of the occult refers not only to how society perceives the hidden and mystical, but also to how those perceptions reveal the deeper anxieties, desires, and imaginations of humankind. Across centuries and civilizations, the occult has served as both muse and mirror, a source of inspiration and a reflection of what society fears or refuses to understand. Every age has reinterpreted the occult through its own lens, transforming it from something dangerous and forbidden into something that reveals the unspoken truths of human existence. From the ancient world to the modern era, culture has always been fascinated with what lies beyond the veil. The Egyptians inscribed spells and incantations on tomb walls, believing that sacred words could guide souls through the afterlife. The Greeks whispered of oracles and mysteries, where divine knowledge was glimpsed only through ritual and symbol. Medieval Europe hid alchemical manuscripts in monasteries, disguising spiritual philosophy as chemistry. In each of these examples, the occult was not simply about magic, it was a coded language for exploring mortality, transformation, and the eternal search for meaning. The cultural expressions of these beliefs tell us that the occult was never about darkness for its own sake. It was about humanity's struggle to understand the unknown forces that govern life and death. In art, the influence of the occult is profound and enduring. Renaissance artists such as Leonardo da Vinci and Albrecht Dürer embedded esoteric geometry, numerology, and hidden symbolism into their works. These details reflected not only artistic mastery, but also the philosophical belief that beauty itself was divine order made visible. Later Romantic and symbolist painters of the 19th century, such as William Blake and Gustave Moreau, infused their art with mystical imagery, angels, and demons' expressions of a yearning for the spiritual amid the rise of industrial modernity. Even in the surrealism of the 20th century, artists like Salvador Dalí and Max Ernst drew inspiration from dreams, the subconscious and occult mysticism, blurring the line between reality and imagination. Through every artistic era, the occult provided a visual vocabulary for expressing the ineffable, the truths that could not be spoken directly. Literature, too, has long reflected the allure and unease of the occult. From Shakespeare's witches in Macbeth to Goethe's Faust, the theme of forbidden knowledge recurs as a moral and philosophical dilemma. Gothic literature, born in the late 18th century, gave the occult a home in shadowed castles, secret chambers, and haunted souls. Writers such as Mary Shelley, Edgar Allan Poe, and H.P. Lovecraft used the supernatural not merely to frighten, but to explore the boundaries of human reason. Shelley's Frankenstein can be read as a parable of scientific and occult transgression, the attempt to create life, to play God, and to face the consequences of overreaching knowledge. Lovecraft's cosmic horror, steeped in occult symbolism, expressed the terror of insignificance in a vast, indifferent universe. The occult, as reflected in literature, became a lens through which society examined its own fears, of death, of power, of what might lie beyond the grasp of human understanding. The occult's reflection in culture also extends to music and popular media. In the 20th century, the rise of rock and metal music revived occult symbolism in a new form through sound, rebellion, and performance. Bands like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and later Metallica and Ghost adopted occult themes not as genuine worship, but as cultural commentary. Their music became an echo of society's suppressed fascination with the forbidden. Even in film, from The Exorcist to The Witch to Doctor Strange, the occult continues to serve as both horror and metaphor. It embodies our collective curiosity about power, morality, and the limits of knowledge. These portrayals often fluctuate between fascination and fear, revealing an ongoing cultural struggle to reconcile the rational world with the persistence of mystery. In more modern times, the occult has found renewed life through fashion, technology, and spirituality. Occult symbols once feared are now printed on clothing, jewelry, and social media aesthetics. Tarot readings are streamed online. Astrology apps offer daily guidance to millions. What was once forbidden is now commodified, aestheticized, and woven into everyday life. Yet, this transformation reveals more than commercialization. It reflects a deep cultural hunger for meaning in an age of uncertainty. In a world saturated with data and logic, the mystical offers what science cannot: wonder, symbolism, and emotional truth. The cultural reflections of the occult also mirror society's shifting relationship with religion and power. In times when institutional faith grows rigid or detached, the occult often resurges as a countercurrent, offering personal experience over dogma. It allows individuals to seek divinity on their own terms, to explore spirituality without the constraints of tradition. The recurring presence of the occult across cultures shows that mystery cannot be eradicated. It only changes form. When the church, the state, or science tries to suppress it, the occult reappears in art, in fiction, in the quiet rituals of those who still believe there is more to existence than what meets the eye. Ultimately, the cultural reflections of the occult reveal more about humanity than about the occult itself. They show a civilization perpetually caught between light and shadow, between skepticism and belief. Every story, painting, and symbol inspired by the occult is a reflection of our collective psyche, the part of us that refuses to accept that all truth can be measured or seen. The occult's endurance in culture is proof that mystery is not a flaw in human understanding, but its foundation. It is the reminder that even in an age of reason, we remain creatures of imagination, drawn again and again to the hidden depths of our own creation. The psychological and moral abyss within, the deep and unsettling occult iceberg, represents the point where the exploration of hidden knowledge collides with the darker recesses of the human mind. It is the space where curiosity transforms into confrontation, where seekers of mystery must face not only what lies beyond them, but also what lies within. The occult, by its very nature, deals with forces unseen, and those forces often act as mirrors for the unconscious. To study or even contemplate the occult is to open a door into one's own psyche, and through that door, both light and shadow emerge. The deeper one descends into that abyss, the clearer it becomes that the line between discovery and destruction, between enlightenment and obsession, is perilously thin. The psychological dimension of the occult has always been profound. The symbols, rituals, and archetypes it employs are not mere inventions of superstition. They are projections of the human mind. Each sigil or invocation is a representation of something primal and emotional, encoded in a language that bypasses reason and speaks directly to intuition. Carl Jung recognized this when he studied alchemy, calling it a symbolic map of the process of individuation, the journey towards self-realization. The alchemist's furnace, where base metals are transformed into gold, was also a metaphor for the psyche's struggle to integrate its fragmented parts. The gold was not physical wealth, but psychological wholeness. Similarly, the occult's engagement with darkness can be seen as an attempt to confront the shadow, the buried aspects of the self that we fear, repress, or deny. Yet this confrontation is perilous because it forces the individual to acknowledge impulses and truths that society and the conscious mind have long rejected. When one gazes too deeply into the abyss of the occult, the abyss begins to gaze back. This phrase, often attributed to Nietzsche, perfectly captures the danger of the psychological descent. The seeker who enters the hidden world without preparation or moral grounding risks being consumed by it. Throughout history, there have been countless tales of those who sought power, knowledge, or transcendence through forbidden means, only to lose their sanity or humanity in the process. In these stories, the occult is not the villain, it is the mirror that reflects the seeker's own flaws and desires. The true horror lies not in demons or curses, but in the realization that the greatest darkness resides within the human soul itself. This is where the moral abyss begins. The pursuit of hidden knowledge inevitably raises ethical questions. Should everything that can be known be known? Should every force that can be controlled be controlled? The occult invites these questions because it tempts its followers with the promise of power. The ability to influence fate, bend reality, or glimpse forbidden truths is intoxicating. Yet with every temptation comes the moral cost. The occult, in its deepest form, forces one to confront the boundaries of morality, what one is willing to sacrifice for knowledge, and what one risks losing in the process. The legends of Faust, who traded his soul for wisdom and power, are not merely cautionary tales about magic. They are psychological dramas about ambition, ego, and the corruptibility of the human will. The abyss also exposes how fragile the balance between reason and madness can be. The study of the occult requires imagination and openness to mystery, but when unchecked by reason, that same imagination can spiral into delusion. History is filled with examples of individuals who descended so far into their pursuit of the unknown that they detached from reality entirely. The mind, when unanchored, can turn inward and devour itself. The rituals and symbols that once illuminated become obsessions. The search for meaning becomes a labyrinth with no exit. The moral and psychological dangers of the occult, therefore, are not external forces but the reflection of human excess, our need to dominate, to transcend, to escape the limitations of being mortal. Yet paradoxically, it is this very abyss that offers the potential for transformation. True engagement with the occult is not about succumbing to darkness, but about integrating it. Understanding that light and shadow coexist within every human being, the descent into the psychological and moral abyss can become a journey of purification, a symbolic death and rebirth. By confronting one's fears, desires, and moral weaknesses, the individual can emerge with deeper wisdom and empathy. This is why in mystical traditions, the dark night of the soul precedes enlightenment. The abyss, though terrifying, becomes a necessary stage in the evolution of consciousness. However, few who enter that abyss do so without consequence. The moral challenge is to face the darkness without becoming it, to seek understanding without succumbing to arrogance or despair. The occult iceberg's depths remind us that there is a cost to every revelation. Knowledge without compassion becomes corruption. Curiosity without humility becomes madness. The abyss is both teacher and test. It reveals who we are when stripped of illusion and safety. Ultimately, the psychological and moral abyss within the occult is not merely about dark rituals or forbidden knowledge. It is about the human condition itself. It represents the eternal struggle between light and shadow, reason and chaos, purity and temptation. To peer into this abyss is to confront the truth that every human being carries within them, both the capacity for creation and destruction, wisdom and folly. The occult simply magnifies this truth, forcing it into focus. Whether one is consumed by the abyss or transformed by it depends not on the darkness itself, but on the strength and clarity of the one who dares to look. Within it, illumination and awareness represent the final and perhaps most transformative stage of the journey through the deep and unsettling occult iceberg. After descending into the hidden layers of mystery, confronting the allure of the forbidden, and facing the psychological and moral abyss, one emerges not unscathed but awakened. The purpose of exploring the occult is not to remain in darkness, but to bring light into it, to illuminate what has long been concealed, and to achieve awareness of the forces, both external and internal, that shape human existence. Illumination is not simply the discovery of secret knowledge. It is the understanding that knowledge without wisdom is hollow. Awareness is not mere observation, but recognition, a conscious acceptance of the interconnectedness between light and shadow, self and universe. Together, they signify the culmination of the seeker's descent, not mastery over mystery, but harmony with it. Throughout history, illumination has been a central theme in both mystical and philosophical traditions. The ancient Hermetic texts spoke of enlightenment as the awakening of the divine spark within humanity, the realization that the same light guiding the stars also resides in the human soul. The Gnostics sought gnosis, or direct knowledge of the divine, not through external authority but through inner revelation. Similarly, the alchemists, whose cryptic experiments often symbolize spiritual processes, believed that the transformation of base metal into gold mirrored the transformation of ignorance into wisdom. These traditions all suggest that illumination is less about acquiring power and more about transcending illusion. The true seeker does not merely uncover hidden truths but learns to see with new eyes, perceiving meaning where others see only chaos. Awareness, in this sense, becomes the bridge between the known and the unknown. It requires the seeker to shed the blindness of fear and the arrogance of certainty. To explore the occult responsibly is to cultivate awareness of context, of history, of ethics, and most importantly, of the self. The darkness of the occult is unsettling not because it hides evil, but because it forces us to confront our own ignorance. In shining light upon the occult, we are really shining light upon ourselves, our desires for control, our fear of mortality, our yearning for purpose. Awareness is therefore a moral and psychological awakening. It transforms the occult from something external and mysterious into something deeply personal and reflective. The path toward illumination often follows a pattern of descent and return. One must first enter the darkness, the unknown, in order to rediscover light in a more profound way. This journey mirrors mythic narratives found in nearly every culture: the descent of Orpheus into the underworld, the trials of the Buddha before enlightenment, the resurrection of Christ after the tomb. These stories are not simply religious metaphors, but reflections of the human experience. Every soul in its search for truth must confront darkness before finding clarity. The occult iceberg symbolizes this cycle perfectly. The deeper the descent into shadow, the brighter the potential for illumination upon return. Illumination and awareness also transform how we interpret the occult's place in modern culture. Once feared as heresy, the occult is now often misunderstood as either a source of entertainment or an aesthetic trend. True illumination cuts through both extremes. It neither glorifies nor dismisses the occult, but seeks to understand its symbolic role in expressing the human condition. The occult at its heart is a language of metaphor, a way of speaking about transcendence, transformation, and the mystery of existence. Illumination allows us to decode that language, to see beyond the literal into the philosophical. What was once feared as darkness becomes recognized as depth. What was once condemned as superstition becomes understood as symbolism. The awareness gained through such illumination is not complacent, but active. It demands responsibility. When one learns to see beneath the surface, one also bears the weight of understanding. The illuminated individual recognizes that truth is complex and that the boundaries between good and evil, light and dark, are rarely absolute. This awareness fosters humility, compassion, and respect for the unknown. It is not about claiming superiority over others or over nature, but about living in harmony with the mysteries that surround us. True enlightenment is not the destruction of mystery, but the acceptance of it as an essential part of existence. Moreover, illumination is not a final state, but an ongoing process. Awareness is not achieved once and for all. It must be nurtured through reflection, study, and experience. The illuminated mind does not close itself off from doubt or wonder. It continues to question, to explore, and to evolve. Just as the iceberg constantly shifts beneath the waves, so too does understanding change as awareness deepens. The seeker who reaches illumination realizes that knowledge is infinite, and that wisdom lies not in possessing answers, but in knowing how to ask better questions. Ultimately, illumination and awareness serve as both resolution and revelation. They remind us that the occult, for all its shadows, is not a path toward darkness, but toward understanding. It teaches that enlightenment is not achieved by escaping the unknown, but by embracing it with courage and insight. To become illuminated is to see that the light and dark are not enemies. They are partners in the eternal dance of existence. Awareness allows us to walk that delicate line with balance, knowing that within every shadow, a spark of truth waits to be seen. The journey through the occult iceberg ends not with fear or triumph, but with understanding, with the quiet, radiant awareness that even in the deepest darkness, light has always been waiting to be found. As we rise from the depths of the deep and unsettling occult iceberg, we find ourselves changed by what we have seen. The journey has taken us from the visible surface, where the familiar symbols of mystery shimmer enticingly, to the hidden layers below, where truth, fear, and fascination intertwine. We have explored how humanity's hunger for knowledge and meaning has often led us toward what is forbidden, how the occult has shaped our art, our imagination, and even our collective psychology. In doing so, we have discovered that the darkness we so often fear is not merely something outside of us, it is a reflection of what lies within. The occult iceberg, in all its depth, is not a monument to evil or danger, but a map of the human condition. It reveals the eternal struggle between curiosity and caution, between shadow and light. The allure of the forbidden reminds us that what is hidden has power precisely because it is unknown, and that power, when sought without wisdom, can consume us. Yet, when approached with awareness and humility, it can also awaken us to deeper truths about the nature of existence and ourselves. The cultural reflections of the occult show how every civilization, in its own way, has tried to make peace with the mysteries it cannot explain, turning fear into art, secrecy into symbolism, and the unknown into understanding. Through our descent into the psychological and moral abyss, we have learned that the greatest darkness is not found in ancient rituals or secret texts, but in the recesses of the human soul, the part of us that yearns for control, immortality, and meaning. To face that abyss is to face our own capacity for both greatness and destruction, and yet out of that confrontation comes the potential for illumination. Awareness is born when we recognize that the occult is not merely a study of hidden forces, but a mirror reflecting the complexity of human consciousness, the endless dance between reason and faith, knowledge and mystery, light and shadow. In the end, the true purpose of exploring the occult is not to glorify the darkness, but to understand it, to see it as a part of the vast and mysterious landscape of human thought. The iceberg reminds us that beneath every belief, every fear, every symbol, there lies something deeper, a universal search for truth. The unsettling becomes profound when we realize that illumination does not destroy the dark. It coexists with it. To know the occult, then, is to know ourselves not as beings divided between good and evil, but as seekers standing at the threshold of the unknown, guided by both shadow and light. So as we emerge from the depths, let us carry with us a new awareness, that mystery is not the enemy of reason, but its companion. That fear is not the absence of knowledge, but the invitation to seek it. The deep and unsettling occult iceberg will always drift beneath the surface of human thought, cold, vast, and silent. But those who dare to look beneath its frozen exterior may find, not darkness, but reflection. And in that reflection lies the oldest truth of all, that the light we seek in the shadows has always been within us, waiting to be seen.